Howdy again everyone, and today I'm putting together a short video to check out how the Nikon version of an interesting new autofocus 7Artisans lens performs, their new autofocus 85mm f1.8. It's a full frame or FX camera lens, and anyone who's seen my original review of it on Sony E-mount will know that this lens is not only very low priced at about $299 but also really quite sharp. I was pleasantly surprised by its performance, although I wasn't totally convinced by its autofocus. Does this Nikon version perform as well as the Sony version though? I'm going to compare how the Nikon version handles its electronics and autofocus and how sharp its images look on a 45 megapixel Nikon FX sensor. That's the highest resolution Nikon has to offer at the time of making this video. If you want to find out more about the lens and how its optics perform, then take a look at my full review down in the description below, and if I remember, I'll pin it in the comments. A lot of the sample pictures you'll see here from the Sony version, but obviously the test pictures and footage is all new. And thanks to 7Artisans, who sent this lens for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. They haven't paid me anything or put any stipulations on its content or anything like that. $299 is a reasonable price for an autofocus 85mm f1.8, quite a good price really. Lenses like this not only tend to offer good image quality, but also get you quite stunning pictures overall, especially for portrait work. On a full frame camera they can get you an especially out of focus background. This 7Artisans offering is about an average size and weight for a lens of this type, being just over 430 grams, but the metallic build quality is a cut above, feeling lovely and solid. If you run your finger around the metallic lens mount, then you can feel just a tiny rubber weather sealing gasket there, but it's extremely thin. That mount also has a USB-C port for future firmware updates. At the side we get an auto manual focus switch as well as an aperture ring. That aperture ring turns smoothly without clicks and a little heavily. It does have a very slight click to turn it to automatic mode, but that click is so very gentle it often seems to wander out again, which can be annoying. Then comes the metallic focus ring, which also turns extremely smoothly but very heavily. The focus motor's response to the focus ring is fine, perhaps just a little slow. The lens's autofocus motor works smoothly and accurately. It's a little on the slow side though, and unlike the Sony version of the lens, this Nikon version emitted a slight clicking sound. The lens's filter thread size is 62mm and it comes with a basic little plastic hood. Overall, the build quality is quite adequate here for a lower budget lens, certainly a step above cheaper plastic lenses, although the aperture ring is a bit awkwardly made for stills photography. Okay, well, let's look at image quality, and we'll test it on a full frame camera, my Nikon Z7. In-camera corrections are turned on. At f1.8, we see excellent sharpness in the middle and good contrast, and the corners, they are looking a little softer, but still more than good enough for a low-budget portrait lens. Remember, at f1.8, your backgrounds will mostly be out of focus anyway. f2.8 is brighter, sharper, and has better contrast, and f4 looks excellent now, albeit with just a tiny touch of colour fringing on contrasting edges. The lens stays this sharp down to about f11, although f16 is softer due to diffraction. Overall, it's a very good performance. The Sony version was a little different. Its corner performance wasn't quite as sharp as this, strangely enough. I imagine that's simply down to sample variation though. But whatever the problem was, it's nice to know the lens is a little more capable than I previously thought. When it comes to vignetting and distortion, performance against bright light, chroma levels and bokeh, well, naturally, all that stuff is the same as the original Sony version of the lens, so check out my full review to find out more about those. Overall though, the Nikon Z mount version of the lens works well, although its autofocus is still quite slow and slightly noisier than the Sony version. But it retains its very good image quality, so if you're on a low budget, I can still quite happily recommend it.